Welcome to TFR Let's Talk, and I'm your host, Swapnil Bhatia. BMC recently announced the results of its global survey for enterprise IT and also availability of Autonomous Digital Enterprise Index tool. To talk about these two topics, we have with us Ram Chakravarti, Chief Technology Officer at BMC. Ram, it's great to have you on the show.
Swapnil, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I want to start with tell us a bit about BMC Software. What do you folks all do? We do know, but for our audience, I do want to refresh their memories.
BMC Software has been around for a little over 40 years, and we are an enterprise software company serving 84% of Forbes top 100. And what we do, after what we've done traditionally, is we started as a mainframe infrastructure and data management company that then went to enterprise systems. And we provide leading solutions for orchestration of workloads and data pipelines, for service management, for infrastructure operations management across a hybrid IT landscape that's becoming increasingly complex and requires resilient, scalable, agile, and flexible systems. That's been the hallmark of our offerings.
As you rightly said, that BMC has been around for so long, and if you look at the hybrid workload, you're talking about a lot of cloud native technology are so new; they're not even 4 years old. Forget about 40 years. I want to hear from you. How do you see this change in the landscape? You already mentioned it's very complicated. If you look at CNCF landscape, it's very complicated. At the same time, in today's world, especially because of this pandemic, every company has kind of not changed but accelerated their journey towards digital transformation and cloud native adoption. So how do you see the evolution of the workloads when you do talk about these companies who are leveraging? And I would be surprised if there's a company who is not doing digital transformation or cloud native.
So we saw things move from mainframe to enterprise distributed systems. Many predicted the end of the mainframe, but I believe that it's going to outlive my career definitely, and which is hopefully a few more years. But beyond that, we've still seen the continued adoption of what I call the centralized model in the technology landscape as we've evolved to a hybrid IT landscape that comprises one or more hyperscalers in any enterprise, a virtual private cloud, on-prem data centers, and even the venerable mainframe for mission-critical applications in certain subsets of industry sectors. Now, that's the model today. But with 5G and explosive growth in connectivity, we're going to see a slight shift where the edge is going to become increasingly important, and the edge model is going to complement the cloud landscape. It's still going to be a hybrid IT landscape, but we're not going to see this preponderance of a centralized model. It's going to shift to the edge more and more so, and that brings with it its own set of opportunities and challenges. That's how I see the landscape evolving.
Let's talk about what role is mainframe in today's, because even if we do talk about cloud native, but critical thing is all the transition. That's the backbone of modern economy. So talk about the role of mainframe number one, and how is Open Mainframe project helping attract not only modern developers, but also bring the modern workloads to it.
As we live in this eclectic hybrid IT landscape that edge and mainframe are important puzzle pieces of, the mainframe still has a role. As mentioned, it's still the platform of choice and the system of record through which nearly every mission critical transaction passes through, whether it's financial services, insurance, or a whole host of other companies. Now, what this means, and the evolution of the mainframe, it's now mimicking what's happening in the enterprise space or the distributed system space. As you mentioned rightly, the Open Mainframe project initiative is one of several such examples. And there's an important distinction to understand in terms of the continued importance of the mainframe and why it's thriving. When I started my career about 26, 27 years back, the mainframe was already a bad word, and we were quickly, if people who are on the mainframe are like, oh my God, am I in this? It's green screens. I want to be on Microsoft or Oracle. And pick your own product. As we've evolved, and now we're in Python, Go, a whole bunch of other things. The mainframe still continues to exist. The reason for that is the last 10 years or so, people that came in with perhaps a slightly less than positive image about the mainframe have all moved on, have moved to higher management functions, or have gone the other way. The new breed of millennial and Gen Z developers and managers, they don't really look at the mainframe as a bad thing. They're looking at it more in terms of what is the business outcome. That's the important mindset shift that has happened and will continue to happen in the IT landscape. And that basically means what is the right horse for the right course. And the mainframe is one of the right horses for a certain set of right courses, even as we continue to expand footprints in various organizations to exploit things at the edge, to exploit cloud native, to exploit modern workloads across a whole bunch of different in aspirations entities have. That mindset shift is the primary driver, in my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. I also want to talk about edge here, as you mentioned. When we look at edge, it depends on who you talk to. When I look at edge, I'm more interested in not especially IoT devices, but I'm interested in edge data centers. How do you look at edge? And once again, in today's world, you cannot talk about any modern application, which doesn't, you have to have AI, ML, you have to have edge strategy, you have to have cloud, and so everything is nothing. We don't live in silos or isolation anymore. So talk about how do you see the first of all, of course, once again, evolution of edge, and once again, I don't want to talk about IoT, and also what kind of new challenges it poses because edge also means resource constrained devices. You don't have the massive, resource at your hand. There is a challenge with connectivity as well. Power becomes a big issue. You cannot send your team to manage and maintain it. You have to keep it secure also. So talk about edge from that perspective.
Okay, I mean it's got to be a light footprint, right? As you basically extend to the edge, and it's really in the context of decoupling. But my view of edge parochially from BMC is actually very simple. What we want to do is extend what our portfolio does in the centralized cloud model to the edge. What do I mean by this? There's a vast multitude of companies that are providing technologies at the edge, from edge discovery, edge asset discovery, to basically edge transaction processing, to securing and remediating assets at the edge, and what have you. The way I look at it is it's basically another component of the hybrid IT landscape, one that you need to cater to in order to continue to stay relevant. So to me, it's the opportunity in that you look at what we do today. We traditionally serve IT assets across the hybrid IT landscape. We are looking to extend it to OT, operational technology, as the logical extension, so that if we can monitor assets at the edge, service assets at the edge, orchestrate an end-to-end flow inclusive of edge devices, whether it's in the context of an application workflow or a data pipeline or what have you, and even drive edge asset remediation. That's still got to be done. And that's got to be done not as one entity, but as an ecosystem of innovation partnerships with the right choice of people that do things at the edge quite well, but can then use our portfolio to kind of extend in the context of an end-to-end solution from the customer standpoint. That's my perspective on how we would view the evolution of technologies and solutions that we provide to address the growth of edge computing.
Excellent. Thanks for explaining that. I really appreciate it. Now, let's stay on the same topic of understanding about the industrial landscape. BMC also did a survey recently. Can you talk about it, and also what are the key findings there?
The North Star for BMC strategic bets is this notion of an autonomous digital enterprise. And an autonomous digital enterprise is the future state of a business, one that I define as an entity that comprises intelligent, interconnected, technology-enabled value-creating systems that minimizes manual effort to capitalize on human creativity, skills, and intellect across the enterprise. Now, you could view an ADE, as I call the autonomous digital enterprise, as a growth and change-oriented entity that has evolved to function with customer centricity, business agility, embracing automation, and deriving actionable insights consistently and successfully from data. So I've had these conversations with a vast multitude of CIOs and CTOs over the last 15, 16 months. And as I tease out this concept, more than 90% of these conversations are oriented towards, yep, I get this. This makes sense. A, we have our own methodology, this resonates, or B, we don't have our own methodology, and this totally makes sense. But then the question becomes, how do I go about doing this? So in answer to that question, what we did was we worked with 451 Research to survey a huge set of companies, 1,200 companies across 20 industry sectors in 11 countries, to gather insights on where they are in different power components of the autonomous digital enterprise to baseline them. We call that the ADE index. Secondly, what we also do is, as part of that survey, we ask them what their aspirations are and where they want to be in 2 years. So it helps them not just get a baseline, but also have an endpoint in terms of where they want to be. That then helps them to look at gaps between where they want to be and where they are today, map it back to the business priorities, decide on what the most important things that they need to solve are, and go systematically executing on them, with the caveat that you want to over-index on things that give you immediate value realization first, so that you gain credibility. So that's the basis behind this whole methodology.
Can you also go a bit deeper into the AD index, interactive tool? What is the goal? I mean, you did allude to that, touch upon it, but I just want to go a bit deeper into that. What are you trying to achieve with that, and how it can be used?
If you look at the ADE itself, I slice it into two buckets. One is operating model characteristics, and the second is technology tenets that help an organization move along in its journey towards becoming an autonomous digital enterprise. Let me focus on the tech tenets in the interest of time. There are 5 tech tenets that really matter. One, transcendent customer experience, providing superior customer experience beyond what your competition can do. Second, automation everywhere, or pervasive automation. You could argue that automation itself is table stakes, people have been doing it, but here I'm talking really about a sliding scale from manual all the way to fully autonomous, where the milestone marker is really the level of intelligent automation that is applied. And you have to be pragmatic about how to use it. That's automation everywhere. The third is what I call enterprise DevOps, which is going from the traditional software DevOps and expanding it to the entire enterprise and the surrounding functions, which often stymie the agility of software DevOps, so that you can get a judicious blend of speed and quality. The fourth, which we've kind of talked about, is the notion of a data-driven business, wherein you can basically get actionable insights from new and previously unavailable forms of data that help you make better decisions and take actions than your competition. The last of these tech tenets is what I call adaptive cybersecurity, which is the next evolution in a set of cybersecurity functions. If you take all of these and put them in a cauldron, coupled with the operating model transformation that an organization has to undergo, that can look pretty daunting. So what you really want to do is, across all of these dimensions for the tech tenets that I talked about, as well as 5 operating model characteristics, we basically provide a set of structured questions that helps people capture where they are today and where they want to be, and helps them make judicious choices across one or more dimensions as to where they can focus their limited dollars in terms of addressing the highest priorities and opportunities.
As much as we want companies to be fast, and competitive, business continuity is much more important than anything else, which means, of course, security has to be there, observability has to be there, automation has to be there. You have to automate. So can you talk about how, I mean, we have the vaccine, so we are expecting things will normalize, but there will be new norms in the tech industry, in the IT space itself. So can you talk about what kind of trends do you see where companies will increase their focus on security? Your automation is there, and so many other factors are there. So talk about it from what you share your insights about it.
Yeah. Great question and insight. As you observed, perhaps implicitly, what we saw in the early days of the pandemic was a stalling of the innovation agenda as companies tried to adjust and pivot towards things that became immediate priorities, right? But now we are seeing a return to the innovation agenda and grappling with serious problems to be long-term viable entities. And this base belief is predicated on the premise that every company is going to become a tech-driven company in the next 5 years or so. And as you've observed, what we've seen as a result, and these are all data points, right? 1,200 plus companies. What we found is today, as well as 2 years from today or thereabouts, investment in data and analytics continues to be the number one driver in organizations. And what we've also seen is the cybersecurity, as well as investing in the customer experience. They took a little dip, but not much. But 2 years from now, they assume their primacy of place along with the data-driven business. What we also found was Automation, everybody thinks it's important, but a lot of people believe that it is table stakes and people absolutely need to get that done. Since you asked specifically about cybersecurity, what I found in terms of trends is cyber threats are expected to rise by about 300% over the next 3 to 5 years. This is not me, this is another exhaustive study that was done. And the rise in the threats is primarily can be traced correlated to the greater shift in the edge, as edge devices become new threat points, vulnerability points, right? So cybersecurity is a board mandate, and AI enablement of all cybersecurity functions is something that's going to happen. But in a response to increased sophistication, we're going to see the mainstreaming of zero trust frameworks, more sophisticated identity and access management, inclusive of biometric sensing, user entity and behavior analytics, and a whole bunch of others that are going to become more and more mainstream.
As you mentioned, all these things, shift left and all those things. There are two things happening. One is, of course, technological changes are happening, and second thing is also the evolution of the culture. Developers to DevSec, then DevSecOps, then we talk about SREs, we talk about GitOps. So a lot of cultural movements are also happening. So there's one set is technology problem, other set is people problem. So from the culture perspective, what kind of changes are you seeing will happen?
I think to tease out the cultural change, we'll have to look at how the IT organization, the central IT organization, is viewed in its in the business. And there are broadly two such archetypes. One, the IT organization continues to be a utility player, in which case they are still solving for the run part of the business, which is solving for complexity and risk mitigation and cost management. On the flip side, you see CIOs in certain other organizations embrace more of the digital strategy and mandate and evolve almost to a CDO. And that's where it's more towards the reinvention part of the business. Along the line, there's different, mini archetypes. It's not one or the other. There's different points. It's almost continuous along these two ends, if you look at it. So what that necessitates is that there is a fundamental IT reinvention that happens regardless of the architect. Because what you need to do is transition from a service delivery, a traditional service delivery model, into more of being able to stand up at scale and fully operationalize these new technology competencies, whether it's the over-indexing on the data and analytics, and rightly so, whether it's new cybersecurity functions, whether it's multi-cloud management and extending to the edge, and hyper-automation, and a whole host of others. As you rightly mentioned, that also requires an infusion of a new set of skills. As DevOps moves to DevSecOps, we still see a lot of organizations that are still struggling to get DevOps at scale. So there is going to be a steady move towards DevOps, DevSecOps, even as Agile has become more and more mainstream. That's another puzzle piece that organizations have to solve for. The third piece that we see is the emergence and the continued rise of the SRE persona, but I characterize it slightly differently. It's not just the traditional site reliability engineering. I look at it as site and service reliability engineering, which is becoming top of mind in some of the largest enterprises. So I look at it as the SSRE persona. And this persona, as the name suggests, is all about reliability, which means that you need to balance agility and quality to have reliable, faster deployments to meet the accelerated needs of the business.
Ram, thank you so much for taking your time out today and talk about not only the BMC's, this report, but also talk about the importance of mainframe, of course, open mainframe, other projects, edge, security. Because when we do look at this cloud native, we have to have a holistic approach. We cannot have a myopic view there. So thanks for explaining those things in detail, and I would love to have you again on the show. So thank you.
Swapnil, thank you. It's been my pleasure. And thanks for the insightful questions as well as the perspectives that you offered also. It made it a really rich dialogue. I can talk about this ad nauseum, but in the interest of time and for our viewers, we'll bid goodbye for now. But I'd love to come back on your show and we would love to tee up a few other topics. So thank you for taking time to hear about BMC. This is the growth and innovation era in BMC's history. And I, for one, am really excited to be a part of it.